Hey folks, welcome to Memphis. So if you carry a gun outside the waistband, open carry, then it's highly advised that you use a retention holster. This is the type of holster that's typically issued to military, to law enforcement, to armed guards, security professionals, something like this. And the reason being is because you'll see it in a lot of security and surveillance photos and videos. You know, if you're open carrying, it gives criminals an opportunity to snatch the gun straight out of your holster. And retention holsters prevent that from happening. Typically, if you're a security professional, military, armed guard, law enforcement, you're going to get issued something like this. This is a Safariland. This is the 7000 series. And the cool thing about a holster like this is it's pretty rugged. It's not as rugged as the 6000 series because they kind of downgraded their plastic a little bit, but it's still one of the cream of the crops of the security professions, and like it's a solid holster. It costs about $250, and you generally get what you pay for. Now, if someone was trying to snatch this gun out of your holster, you have 3 levels of retention. There's 3 ways that this holster prevents that gun from getting snatched. The first way is your thumb would hit this mechanism right here to defeat the hood. The second way is there's another lever right in here, and what that does is it frees the locking mechanism. There's a locking mechanism inside the holster that latches onto the ejection port. It doesn't latch onto the trigger guard. It doesn't latch onto the light. It latches onto the ejection port. And so, just to recap, this right here is the first level, defeated by pressing your thumb forward. When you bring your thumb back, then it'll hit this other lever to defeat that level of retention. And then finally, there's friction that helps to retain this gun inside of the holster, and that's defeated by pulling the gun up. And so this is a level, you have 3 levels of retention. Now, because this holster doesn't latch onto the light or the trigger guard or anything like that, it really latches onto the ejection port right here. And it also has a little bit of friction onto the light and onto the slide, but it also has this hood on here as well. And so it makes it really easy for you to quickly bring this thing out into action. Now, the cool thing about this holster is that it doesn't matter if you have a light on it or not, and it doesn't matter if you have optics or iron sights. It's going to latch on either way. Now, the same levels of retention are going to apply. Now, let's see if I can grab another example. There we go. Like, I'll use this blue gun right here as an example. And that latches on the same way. You notice that this is a Glock 19 without an optic, without a light, and it's a little bit smaller than your 17, but it still locks into the holster, and the hood still works. And so you still have the same 3 levels of retention without a light, without an optic, and even with a smaller gun. And you could still get the gun out just as easily. Now that right there is a $250 gun. I'm sorry, $250 holster. And if you ask anybody what the best security professional holster is, the best holster for military, for law enforcement, for armed guards, if you ask them what the best holster is out there for you, usually it's going to be a Safariland. If you ask them what the worst is, the worst holster is unquestionably made by Blackhawk, and it's called the SERPA. And the reason why this holster is so bad is because the retention mechanism, one of the retention mechanisms is this lock right here. This locks onto the trigger guard. And the reason why it's so dangerous is because it requires your trigger finger to deactivate it. This Safariland holster doesn't require that. Your trigger finger stays straight the entire time. Why? Because the only job your trigger finger should have is to press the trigger. It should stay straight the whole rest of the time unless your sights are on the target and you've made the conscious decision to fire. It's almost like a safety rule. So, in fact, it is a safety rule. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. That's a safety rule. Keep your finger straight and then register off the trigger, straight, high on the slide, until you've made the conscious decision to fire. Now, this holster tells you not to do that. This holster tells you to use this trigger finger to press this here, and then that increases the likelihood of your finger slipping onto the trigger. That's why this holster, these SERPA holsters, have been outlawed by multiple law enforcement agencies. They've been outlawed by multiple schools, multiple instructors. They ban these at a lot of different gun ranges and a lot of shooting facilities. You can't even take these to a lot of matches. It's a dangerous holster, and no one has shot themselves with any other holster more than this holster. This is dangerous. The sad part is the SERPA holster only costs like $25, and it's sold in almost every gun shop in America. And the reason for that is because a lot of the people that sell guns don't really shoot guns. So they're not really, they don't really know that this is dangerous. Now, unfortunately, what Blackhawk has done in order to better compete with Safariland is they got the worst holster on earth and they made it level 3. And the way they did it was probably the worst way ever. What they did was they installed this hood, but the hood is not big enough for an optic. You notice how this hood is barely larger than the slide. And the reason why it's so bulky is because they use cheap plastic. The way you defeat this level of retention is with your thumb. You drive your thumb down in here and you apply pressure in. Now, let's recap that, okay? You use your thumb, you press it in like that. Now, without the holster here, what that looks like is you press your thumb in. And when you combine that with the other retention mechanism with your trigger finger, now what you're doing is you're creating a pinching motion. And that further increases the risk of your finger falling onto the trigger. Now, just for comparison, let's go back to our Safariland and let's make sure this is clear. Let's check it again. I see it clear and I feel it clear. I'm gonna slide this in here. I'm gonna deactivate the hood and let's see if I'm in a hurry. Let's see how quickly I could get this out. Excellent. And my finger stays straight the entire time. Let's try that again. Excellent. Now, let's try it with this thing. I don't even feel comfortable putting a gun in there, but let's try it. Keep in mind that whole pinching thing right here. Okay, wow. Let's see if I can do it without doing that, without my finger on the trigger. Let's try it one more time, okay? All right, and it's almost impossible for me to not have my finger on the trigger while drawing with this holster. Now, what Blackhawk says is, hey, that's why we put this little groove in here, to keep this trigger finger from falling onto the trigger. Well, that might have worked with enough training. Most people that train aren't going to go with this holster. But that logic is defeated by adding the thumb deactivated hood. When you add that thumb motion in, now you introduce more of a pinching motion, and that just further forces your finger onto that trigger. Somehow, some way, they got the worst holster in America, and they made it worse. Now, yeah, so next time you go to a place that has armed guards, next time you go to like the bank, or, if you see armed guards at Walmart or Kroger or wherever, there's a lot that you can imply from whether they're wearing this or if they're wearing this. Whether they have a $25 holster that, let's just be real here, this is emergency equipment, and you got $25 and then you have $250. It's literally 10 times the price, and I would say 10 times the value. Additionally, what I think is the kind of people that grab this holster don't really know how dangerous it is. And there's a lot you can tell from that. Most people would call that a clue. So anyways, leave me a comment down below. If you see anybody rocking this holster, I want you to leave a comment down below where you saw them at, okay? I saw this guy at Kroger. I saw this guy at the bank. I saw this guy at Walmart, you know? Or I saw it, you know, they issued these at my unit, you know? Let me know what you think. Also, leave me a comment down below and let me know if you like this kind of content. I'm still learning, okay? I'm getting a lot from the feedback that you're providing me with, and if there's a way for me to improve these videos, please leave me a comment down below, okay? Let me get some feedback. I really do appreciate it. If you like this stuff, give me a thumbs up, maybe consider subscribing, and just thanks a bunch for watching. Welcome to Memphis.